All right, guys, we're going to take a quick look at the French and Indian War. Even though its name suggests it is a war between the French and the Native Americans, in reality, it's a war of the French and the British, with Indian allies, Native American allies on both sides. And the cause of this war, of course, is land. France has expanded its territory into a lot of North America, especially modern day United States. They have claimed the Ohio River Valley, the Mississippi River Valley, the entire Great Lakes region, and a small little plot of land between the Appalachian Mountains and the Rocky Mountains. So this map right here kind of gives you a glimpse into it. So right over here is the Ohio River Valley. Here is the Mississippi River Valley, the Great Lakes, and this small little area right here, and of course I'm being sarcastic, the massive entire central part of the United States, which will become known as Louisiana. All of this land is claimed by the French. Tensions are rising, and both sides are gaining allies, friends with Native American tribes. The French have allied themselves with the Huron and the Algonquin, whereas the English have allied themselves with the Iroquois League. The Iroquois is actually a group of 7 Native American tribes, predominantly in the northern colonies, especially upstate New York. Now, the French and Indian War is only a part of the grander scale of the war, also known as the 7 Years' War. Now, the French and Indian War occurred only here on American soil, whereas the 7 Years' War was going on around the world in parts of South America, Africa, in Asia even. It was across the world. British fur traders had entered the Ohio River Valley just to trap and trade. British colonists followed suit, and with colonists comes towns, buildings, they start claiming land. Well, French take exception to this because, well, that's their territory, they think. So a man named Charles de Langlade destroys the village of Piquilani, which really escalates tensions. Both French and British start to build military forts in the area. Virginia's lieutenant governor sends soldiers to tell the French to get out of the area because, well, they thought it was theirs. The leader of that group was a 21-year-old major by the name of George Washington. Before he threatens the French, essentially, Washington orders his men to build a fortress, a base as it will be, known as Fort Necessity, right in the Ohio River Valley. They named it Fort Necessity, well, because this fort was a necessity. They needed it. They are promptly attacked and defeated by the French on July 3rd, 1754. I find the date, well, kind of amusing. One day before independence, 20 years earlier. Washington surrenders the fort and marches his men back to Virginia, defeated. But this is, as we all know, this is not the end of Washington. After his defeat, a group of colonists meet in upstate New York in the city of Albany, and one of the members, a man named Benjamin Franklin, comes up with something called the Albany Plan of Union. And he was inspired by the Iroquois League of Nations. Like I said, it was 7 different tribes that banded together in times of war for strength and support. He suggested that all colonies do this. All 13 colonies unite for strength. The members of the council agree. They think it's a great idea. Individual colonial governments, well, they don't, because they didn't want to give up their power. They liked the idea of controlling their own colony, not having to answer or to listen to somebody else. The war goes on. British send troops, generals, leaders. One of their greatest generals is a man named General Edward Braddock. Braddock chooses George Washington to be his aide-de-camp, his right-hand man. He and 2,100 British soldiers leave Virginia for a place called Fort Duquesne, which is in southwestern Pennsylvania. They are met by 900 French and Native American troops, but they're ambushed. Washington and Braddock's men are not outnumbered, but they are surrounded. Washington urges Braddock to fight from behind trees and rocks. Braddock refuses. It is not the British way. They're to fight on mounted horse in their bright red jackets in the middle of the woods. Understandably, Braddock is shot and will die 3 days later from his injuries. Washington, miraculously, is not hit at all, even though there were 4 bullet holes in his jacket, and 2 horses had even been shot out from underneath him. Obviously, Washington was meant for greater things on that day than being shot down at the Battle of Fort de Queen. As a result, British Secretary of State William Pitt sends more troops, more generals. He sends over his top general, James Wolfe. By the end of August 1759, 6 French forts are captured, including Fort de Queen, which is soundly renamed Fort Pitt for William Pitt. That is now modern-day Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The city of Quebec is also captured by the British in 1759, but at the cost of the life of General Wolfe. He is killed in the Battle of Quebec. This is the turning point of the war. The effect of this battle is the British start to win, the French are losing ground, Native Americans are being pushed back. Disregard the bell, I'm recording during school. Adds a little reality to it. The end of the war comes about with the Treaty of Paris. 1761, Spain agrees to help France because, well, they want more territory over there. However, the war ends before Spain can really mobilize itself and get troops to North America. The war is over in 1763. England claims all of the land up to the Mississippi River. France, as a thank you to Spain, gives them all the land west of the Mississippi River, essentially splitting North America, well, I wouldn't say in half, more like 2/3 to Spain, 1/3 to England, also known as Great Britain. England also gave Cuba back to Spain because we had seized it during the war in return for Florida. So now Florida is a part of Great Britain for now. It won't be for long. The British start moving out west past the backcountry over the Appalachian Mountains, and they're met and greeted by Native American tribes who had allied themselves with the French and were friends with the French. The British refused to trade with them. Well, these natives had been getting European supplies from the French for years, and they were, kind of accustomed to it. So they started to demand trading. Again, British said, no, not going to trade with you. One thing leads to another, and we have outbreak of war again, as it seems. Tribes start attacking British forts and settlers. People start getting killed. One of the key leaders was a Ottawa leader by the name of Pontiac, but he was only one of many. But this whole thing is known as Pontiac's Rebellion. The British respond by killing any and all Native Americans they can find. Whether they're Ottawa, whether they're violent or not, they don't care. They're just killing Native Americans, or savages, as they call them. Who's the savage one here? In an attempt to end the fighting, the British invite Delaware leaders to negotiate peace, so they say. They give them a gift of blankets that are infested with smallpox, and they do this on purpose. There's no mistake about this, guys. This killed hundreds of thousands of Native Americans. Pontiac eventually is captured and clubbed to death. But then the English turn around and pass something called the Proclamation of 1763. And the king's reason for this was to simply keep peace. He was tired of fighting. They had just fought the entire French and Indian War. Now there was possibility of more fighting with the Native Americans. And war's expensive. So he did not want any more fighting to go on. Proclamation stated was that British citizens could not live west of the Appalachian Mountains. So you see over here, this is the proclamation line. Colonists had to stick to these areas. Could not go down to Florida, could not go out west. So follow this with me. These guys had fought and died for all of this land over here. And, well, now the king's saying, nope, sorry, you can't use it. Despite the fact that hundreds of settlers already lived out there. So British troops are going around essentially trying to kick British citizens out of their homes that have been there for a couple of generations, saying you have to go back to the east, back to the coast, give up your homes, give up your territory, because we're not going to protect you. And if Native Americans, well, if and when Native Americans come and attack, you're on your own. We're not helping you. This really starts to lead to a whole lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and eventually to a lot of taxes. Because, like I said, war's expensive, and, well, the money's got to come from somewhere. The only way a government can make money is to, well, take it from its citizens, you and me. That's what taxes are. So, as you can see in this slide, there's a big thing that's about to come as a result of the Proclamation of 1763. Many historians, and myself included, will argue that the American Revolution's first cause was the French and Indian War, and directly the Proclamation of 1763.